Superman's death, was it suicide?
It's impossible that anybody could have come in to that small house unseen and killed George.
Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen talk about the tragedy, why one has changed their story.
That's next. Welcome back to Entertainment Tonight. Whatever happened to your favorite TV stars?
He was TV's Man of Steel, but mystery continues to surround the death of the man who played Superman, actor George Reeves. Was it homicide or suicide? The stars who played Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen give us their theories today about the tragedy.
To my certain knowledge, 3 bullet holes. And why are there 3 bullet holes from a suicide? And that has never gone out of my mind. It's an ambiguity.
Superman was always able to save Jimmy Olsen from certain death. Sadly, Jack Larson couldn't do the same for his friend. Coroners ruled in 1959 that Reeves died by his own hand. Noel, who played Lois Lane, once concurred with that finding. Now she's come to believe something different.
It's such a shame he just got mixed up with the wrong lady.
Reeves had a complicated love life. For years, he'd been involved with Toni Mannix, the wife of a movie studio executive. Then one day, he shocked friends, dumping Toni and embarking on a new relationship.
I said, George, leaving Toni? And he said, yes, Junior, I am. I have. And I said, what can it be? This other woman. And he said, well, I'll tell you, she makes me feel like a boy again.
Her name was Lenore Lemmon. In 1989, she told E.T. George killed himself because he was unable to land roles after flying high as the superhero.
What made him commit suicide was Superman. It's as simple as that.
There has been speculation that George's spurned ex-lover had mob connections and sought to have him killed. Larson says that's nonsense.
It's impossible that anybody could have come in to that small house unseen, gone upstairs, we'll say a gunman, a hitman, and killed George. It's possible that there was a struggle over a gun. Something happened in the house that night. No one's alive who was there. We'll never know.
104 episodes of the hit series had been shot at the time of Reeves' death.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman.
Noel was not TV's first Lois. Phyllis Coates played the feisty reporter when the show debuted in 1953. But the first 26 episodes had actually been shot almost 2 years earlier. And by the time Superman was finally broadcast, Phyllis had lined up another job.
She was going to do a pilot. And she thought, well, it'd be great. I'll be the girl lead instead of one of 4 people. So they said, well, she has till like 5 o'clock on Friday to let us know, and she didn't, so I got the job.
And it was Superman himself who made the newcomer feel welcome.
Filling in with a family group is kind of hard to break in to the boys' club. And but he was so nice.
Hello, Jimmy.
Golly, Superman, did it hurt you?
No, of course not, but you want to...
Jack and George had become fast friends. Both wanted to be taken seriously as actors and feared the show's enormous popularity would typecast them forever.
I couldn't take the subway anymore. And within a month, I became what People magazine called the first TV teen idol. And I realized that this was dangerous for my acting career.
Since its debut, the series has rarely been off the air. The Adventures of Superman will join the TV Land weekday lineup starting in the spring, and though the show's special effects are old-fashioned by today's standards, back in the early 50s, this was uncharted territory, and it didn't always go smoothly.
They did wires with George in the first 26 that I didn't work in, and they dropped him once. And he said something about somebody flies, but not George Reeves, and he walked off the set that day, of course.
The effects crew developed a new way to keep Superman soaring and were particularly proud of his takeoffs and landings.
They put diving board in the floor and in front of a window or a wall. And what George would do, he'd run, hit the board, and do a tuck
George was extremely concerned about bursting through walls.
The walls had to be just so. They had to dry to a certain degree so they would do what George called pop.
That's the 15-second fuse. We'll never make it.
The show ended with George's death, but neither Jack nor Noel became wealthy from the series. They received no residuals, and their weekly salaries were small by today's standards.
$225 a show. When I read now about these kids on Friends, I just want to barf, you know? God.
Noel chose to retire from show business after Superman. Twice divorced, today the 82-year-old is happily single, occasionally does PR work, and enjoys traveling to exotic locations. She and Jack remain close. As he feared, Superman made it almost impossible for him to land subsequent roles. He turned his attention to writing, receiving international acclaim as a playwright, poet, and librettist. But the 69-year-old knows that's not how he'll be remembered.
It will be on my obit, Jack Larson, best known on the Superman show as Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, and I'm grateful for it.